All right, ladies and gents, welcome to ASLO's PME Day. The purpose of this PME activity is to review a book of your choice on logistics, preferably, or some sort of military activity within 5 minutes. I've decided to look at a bunch of different books that we've got on our ASLO PME list and in our library. All of these books are available on the Defence Library Service or in our little library downstairs in the Kindermoth building. One of the first things I want to start with is that we might all be professionals in logistics, but if you think you know everything about your trade, your core, your job, I suggest you need to follow the advice of Major General Tim Mattis. And his quote there indicates that there are a lot of people out there that have written good things about logistics and other things. And if you haven't started to read them, now's a great time to start. And I hope this activity, this PME activity, has inspired you to just get into this the Army reading list, particularly focused on logistics, and start learning about your trade. So when I got the nod to say that I was coming here as CEO ASLO, I remember hearing about the Army reading list and I thought I'd jump on and find about these logbooks because I hadn't read them. So I thought I should at least set the example and learn about them. The first book I picked up was Feeding Mars. And if you don't know, Mars is the Greek god of war. So the book Feeding Mars, Feeding War, is exactly what logisticians do. And the thing about Feeding Mars is it's one of these books, you know, it's got about 10 or 15 essays that are quite accessible. It brought home to me that the principles of logistics are enduring. Whether you're the Macedonian army and foraging for food for your cavalry, or securing coal for your shipping fleet, or diesel, what have you, those principles of logistics endure. So as Mark Twain has said, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes, and thanks for picking up the typo. The next book I looked at, and it had been referenced in Feeding Mars, was Supplying War. And Supplying War was written in the 70s. It was one of the first books, other than I think George C. Thorpe's Pure Logistics in 1919, that really discussed what logistics was all about. Von Creedfeld identified the criticality of logistics to war, but his view was that it wasn't necessarily logistics that always won the war. It was most often the commander or a particular battle. And I'm sure we'll hear from Carl to contest that idea in his presentation. And that counter-pointed with another book I started to read. I found it a bit tough to read, I have to admit. But The Allure of Battle by Cathay J. Nolan suggests this idea of the allure of battle, that the battles are what win wars. He's suggesting that actually that's not true at all. He's suggesting that his analysis was that wars always nearly prove to be attritional, which is to say they rely on logistics. If you don't have enough, like the Japanese found out trying to defeat the Americans on Guadalcanal, if they ran out of food, then you'll lose that battle and you eventually lose the campaign. Their campaign was about securing resources for their small country. Similarly, the German 6th Army found against the Russian Red Army at Stalingrad that if you rely on Luftwaffe air transport up against pretty accurate anti-aircraft fire from the Russians, that's going to unhinge your plan in a logistics way. So again, wars proved to be attritional. Colonel Joby Turner wrote about Feeding Victory, quite a contemporary book. Looked back to the frontier wars between France and Britain in the 1700s in North America, and established over sort of a period of 300 years, looking at Guadalcanal, Stalingrad, and the Battle of Khe Sanh in Vietnam, but there are certain enduring things that we see in logistics, as perhaps the principles of warfare point out and the principles of logistics point out. But importantly, being able to manage that system of logistics meant the difference between victory and defeat. His other point, which I thought was really interesting, was that you need to control the domains that you push the logistics through. Otherwise, you cannot sustain your force, and that force will lose, as the Japanese found out to their detriment. And so to finish, this page here is from a book, one of the last books I tried to read. It was one of those excellent RAND studies on logistics. And I got to this page, it was about 9:30 p.m, and I fell asleep in about 2 seconds because I just couldn't get past the amount of acronyms. Now, loggies are pretty bad at times for communicating, and we often use too many of these terms that you just watch people's eyes glaze over. Well, I encourage you to try and avoid that, practice what you're saying, get in a good habit of just speaking plain English, adopt the Kincaid method for your writing, as Dave now knows, and try and simplify it as much as possible. Thank you.